the Budapest Stock Exchange, Richárd, Végh. He's going to talk about the word of the IPO, and then we will have another 5 minutes Q&A session after his presentation. Richie, the floor is yours.
Hello, good afternoon, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really glad that Budapest hosts such a nice event for the startup world. I think everybody now knows that to have an ecosystem which helps the startup companies to grow and to find financing is very, very important for the economy, to have a balanced structure for the economy and not to have only the traditional sectors, the traditional companies, but also to attract talent for the tech sector and companies that can grow very quickly. So I think from what you can expect from my presentation as the CEO of the stock exchange, for sure I will talk about the financing possibilities, because I think that the Budapest Stock Exchange has a lot to offer for this part of the sector, for this part of the economy and these kind of companies. So therefore I would like to go into the details. What are these services and what are these features that the Budapest Stock Exchange can offer to startup companies? And of course, I will not speak about the theory and the funding escalator and things like that, because I think many of you know it maybe better than me. So I would like to talk about our practice, what we do in our day-to-day work at the Budapest Stock Exchange, which is related or might be related and might be useful for you to know as people who are connected to the startup world. So if you think about stock exchanges and if you think about the Budapest Stock Exchange, actually this is the chart of the main index, the BUX index. So the stock exchange is mainly, you hear about the largest companies. In Hungary, these are the Hungarian blue chips who are dominating the index. They are from traditional sectors, from banking, oil, telecommunication, and pharmaceutical companies. So these are traditional sectors. They are very large and with a lot of history. And of course, when investors are looking at the Budapest Stock Exchange, first and foremost, they are finding this. But we would like to change a little bit this picture, and we would like to offer the possibility for other companies, smaller companies, the possibility of entering the capital markets, entering the stock exchange. For that, we recommend always for entrepreneurs and company owners to build a company which is eligible for a stock exchange listing. So what that means, first of all, why to do that? I think to have a company that is eligible for a stock exchange listing is the best thing in the world, because it means that it is transparent, it is understandable not for you as well, for you only, who is the founder maybe of the company, but for outside financial investors. So it enables you as an owner or an entrepreneur to realize the value really that is inside this company. And it is not necessary that you will then bring the company to the exchange, but the possibility to realize the value is much, much greater than compared to another situation when maybe it's not ready for a potential listing, so maybe not that transparent, not that easy for outside financial investors to understand the company and the company's values. So when you start to do that, of course, it's not that easy. So this is a picture that can sometimes we feel that entrepreneurs and company owners feel like that when they start this road and start this journey to become eligible for a stock exchange listing, because this is a very, very regulated environment. So you have tons of regulations that, of course, for a good reason, is there to defend the interest of the investors, to make all the transparency requirements and so on. So first of all, you need to have some help to understand this world that also partly this is regulation, partly this is the logic and the thinking of the institutional investors. You have to get to know all the parties, the advisors and so on who are part of this particular ecosystem. So what are the questions that we have, and sometimes these are like misinterpretations of the reality. So a lot of business owners think about becoming a public company like, okay, I have to be so transparent that I will not be able to keep my business secrets. And of course, this is not true. Having a publicly listed company and having all the transparency requirements doesn't mean that you don't, that you are not able to keep your business secret. So public information, inside information, and business secret are not equal things. So they are totally different, and all the rules are very clear here, where you can divide, and what you have to publish and you can keep, what you can keep as a business secret is very clearly defined in the rules. So this should not be a fear or a problem. The second one is that having a lot of owners is probably making the decision-making process very cumbersome, very slow. So it's a hinder to the company's further development. It's probably not true again, because on the stock exchange you have a lot of small investors. They are financial investors. They are not strategic. They don't want to have a say in the main strategic decisions. They don't have a seat in the boards, and so on. So I think it's, on the contrary, it's very easy to handle them, and it's the most important to keep your promises, of course, and at the end of the year, in the annual report, you should provide them the right results that you communicated before. And if that's okay, I think it will be all right. We quite often come to this question of if you go to the public markets, it's most probably my company will be acquired and I will lose the control of the company. Again, I think it's on the contrary, because again, if you have a lot of very small investors who don't want to interfere with the strategic decisions, you can have a much smaller ownership stake in a company and still have the strategic control over the company. So I think it's very clearly not really a big problem. Okay, so becoming rich by having a listed company, and whether it's a way to become very rich very quickly, of course, it is not true as well. A lot of work and a lot of value creation, which makes a public listed company also valuable. And of course, the investors on the other side, they are also have their own interests, and they looking at very much what they value and why they don't in a potential listing. And the size, of course, we started with the blue chip companies. They are really big in the Hungarian arena. So what is the size when a company can become a listed company? We don't have a minimum requirements, and you cannot find any stock exchange in Europe or in the world that sets you a minimum threshold in terms of size. So you can find in all the countries stock exchanges like entry markets, SME growth markets, where absolutely there is no minimum requirement for the size. Of course, you have the main markets, premium markets, where you can have some minimum size requirements, but on the junior markets, there is definitely no minimum size as an official requirement. Of course, on the other hand, you can have the economies of scale when it's really worth doing that. But according to our experience, it can be even very small. So we have, as a market value, few billion forints of market value on our SME growth market when in the initial phase when these companies enter the market. So I think it's surprisingly low, this limit, according to our experience, when companies enter first into the SME growth market. Okay, what are the criteria, like qualitative and quantitative criteria? I think it's quite well known, so I wouldn't take a lot of time with that. Of course, you have profitability, growth, capital structure, and so on, but qualitatively, it should be transparent with a good quality management. It's important that the ownership structure should be also understandable, transparent, and of course, the quality of your business, what is unique about your company is also important for investors. Okay, so how the listing can create value for the owners. So it's quite unique compared to an M&A sale of a company that you can partially exit and also partially even raise more capital and still also retain the ownership and control over the company's strategic decisions, which is, in a sense, it's very unique because if you sell your company to a strategic, an M&A deal, these three things cannot work together. They most probably will buy the majority, they will control the company, and after a while, you will exit totally your original company. Okay, tax benefits. So there are, at least in Hungary, there are different ways to realize tax benefits. For example, if you are, as a private individual, you are owner of the company, you can have a TBS, a long-term savings account, and there you can have tax-free or dividends, for example, on the long run, or you can have an MRP, an employee share program, which is also tax-wise a beneficial incentive scheme. And if you ask a tax advisor, probably they will list much more. Okay, what is very important is that the investor base that is available for companies on a stock exchange is very wide. You can access the retail investors. In Hungary, if you analyze the savings of the Hungarian households, you will be surprised by the amounts that are on the different accounts. So it's tens of thousands of billions of forints of savings that is available potentially for companies listed on stock exchanges. On the other hand, there are, of course, the professional investors, institutional investors, mutual fund managers, and the likes. And of course, if you grow in size, you can also address international investors. For that, definitely you need to reach a certain size limit. Okay, differentiation from competitors. This is one element that I would like to highlight. We get feedback quite often from listed companies that one of the main benefits that they realized very quickly after the listing was this element. So differentiation from competitors together with the trust element from business partners. So they could enter into, they could acquire a new business partner from abroad mainly, which they tried to do for years, but they didn't succeed. And after the listing, because of the trust of the listing itself and the transparency which comes together with the listing, they succeeded in entering new markets and having new business partners. Okay, so this is probably a good summary of what the Budapest Stock Exchange can offer to companies, entrepreneurs, business owners in Hungary, and not only in Hungary, of course. We are having some international issuers as well. So first of all, we started to build a business network. Under the brand umbrella of BEAT 50, we publish a publication every year with 50 Hungarian successful companies. Now we did it in the last 8 years, so now we have a network of 400 very nice, very successful mid-cap companies. For these companies, we organize events and also some kind of education, let's call it education events, when we would like to provide them more detailed information about how they could realize the potential benefits of the capital market instruments. So the second is an international program. It is called ELITE. When we started our partnership with them in 2017, they were under the London Stock Exchange Group. Following some transactions, now they are under the Euronext Stock Exchange Group. But this is, I think, one of the best international programs for companies who would like to scale their business, who want to grow one size bigger, and they provide a lot of networking opportunities, so you can meet your peers not only from Hungary but also from other European countries. And also they have a very nice syllabus for developing your strategy, your strategy for entering international markets, and of course on the financing part, it's also a very, very strong program. We provide a meeting point for companies who are seeking to raise capital and the investors. We call it the X-Match. We have also an internet-based platform for that, but in a sense, this is a conference where we invite the companies, we invite the investors. They can change cards and continue the negotiations afterwards. So most of the companies who later on entered our market, our SME growth market, and raised capital, they started here as well, and this was kind of a first introduction to potential investors. We have a so-called mentor program where we, under this umbrella, we provided some financial help for the costs of becoming a listed company, for some education programs, and also we organize some events when we invite the consultants and the members from this ecosystem to give very interesting information. There are some investment funds which are particularly active in the fundraisings of smaller companies. Some of them are state-backed, some of them are partly state-backed, but the most important thing that there are active players from the institutional investors arena that are actively looking at companies that are smaller, but they are going to the exchange. We have the so-called nominated advisors, or nomads. We have 20 banks, brokerage firms, and consultancy firms who are registered nomads at the stock exchange, and they are the partners who you should contact very, very early on to start the whole process. They will give you feedback and help later on with the process. So on the one hand, this is a help for the company, but on the other hand, it's an investor protection scheme as well, because with their reputation, they guarantee that the company that they are bringing to the market are really ready for this step, and they are well educated about the transparency requirements and so on. So the actual SME growth market is called X-Stand for the Budapest Stock Exchange. So this is the marketplace where we invite most of the smaller companies, more early stage companies who would like to have a listing. We have a bond market as well, where we have around 90 issuer companies. And of course, there is the main market of the stock exchange with two segments, standard and the prime market. So these are the actual listings together with the listing on the SME growth market, the companies also raised money. But after the initial listing and after the initial capital raise, these companies and also others did follow-on capital raises. So altogether, on our SME market extent, there were 38 capital raises, and the average size of the capital raise was 1.6 billion Hungarian forints. So this is, I don't know, maybe small, maybe large. It depends on maybe your company and your business plans. But these are some of the examples, and you can see that, of course, there are some smallers, like a few hundred millions, but there are some larger stakes, like over 1 billion. And on the follow-on, some of them they raised even larger amounts. And maybe one interesting connection to the VC world and the startup world is the example of OXO and Start, who are holding company, investor companies who are listed on our markets, on the external SME market, but their main activity is really to invest into startup companies, technology companies. So this is a nice, let's say, mix of the two worlds, of listed companies and also startup financing. So I think this is, in the UK, for example, there are the VCTs, venture capital trusts, where in a slightly different legal form, they do the same, basically, that they invest into startup world, and the instrument itself is available on public markets. So this is just a summary of what are the benefits of becoming a listed company, but the main message is that we are here, and you can contact us not only when you actually want to ring the bell at the stock exchange and become a listed company, but we have many, many services and offerings before the listing, before the IPO. So if you just started to consider, please contact us. We can share with you our experiences and explain in more details what are our services and how we could help in this journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Richie, for this wonderful presentation. We have time for questions, and I would really suggest you to take the opportunity and to face and ask any questions from leaders who are usually not that easy to reach. So I would really encourage you to have this opportunity right now. So let's see. Yes, over there we have a question, and then we also have Nora. Thank you. Please introduce yourselves as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the presentation. That was very interesting. What do you think? What's the most common? Is the startup go for a stock exchange, or they are looking for opportunity for an exit?
I think it's in many cases it's about fundraising or exit or both. So we have some examples now when they chose the stock exchange listing as the exit opportunity, but it was together with the additional capital raise for the company. So I think this is the most usual way.
Thank you so much for your answer.
Nora?
Thank you. We have got a great overview of what the startup should know about getting listed once at the Budapest Stock Exchange. Just I would like to know more about how you convince potential investors, retail investors, to trade more often and to pay more attention to the stock market, so that to provide liquidity for the startups that surely attracts startups even better.
I think it's a growing ecosystem. So we started this chain of services in, let's say, 5 years ago. So it's still developing. It's not an ecosystem that is working for tens of years. So I think that with the growing number of issuer companies being listed and I think the attention from investors will automatically grow. So I think what we have examples, for example, Start, they raised more than $1 billion only from retail investors. It was a closed deal, so it was under 150 investors, for example. We had many cases when there were some anchor investors from the institutional world, and they had also the retail investors. So I think this is a developing ecosystem, and I think the number of investors who are looking at it actively is growing. But if you have your plans, I think you go to one of the nomads and to pitch some of the anchor investors. I think you can have a good feeling about your possibilities. But we can also show you broadly the experiences so far. So already we see some very different approaches. So I think that there is not one-size-fits-all approaches, so you can have your own.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Richie.
Thank you very much. I will be here for some time, and we are reachable. You can contact us, so please do that. Thanks.
Thank you. A big applause to Richie, the CEO of the Budapest Stock Exchange.